Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of chapter 13 of the first book of Kings, that is Melachim Aleph, Parak Yud Gimel. We are up to verse 11. We just read of the curse that a prophet, who was nameless in the text, but the tradition has identified him as Edo, who had presented himself to the temple, the new temple that Jereboam had put a golden calf in Beit during his inauguration ceremony, and the prediction that he made that this mizbeach, that this altar will be smashed one day, and how the miracle happened where Jereboam's arm froze, and the Navi had to pray to God to have his arm defrost, so to speak, to his arm to come back to life, and how the Mizbeach broke apart as he had predicted. And we had read of how Jereboam tried to seduce, so to speak, this Navi, this prophet, into under his influence by inviting him to his house to eat. The prophet refused because he had he told Jereboam that he's not allowed to do anything in this city. He's not allowed to stop to eat or drink or rest. He can only go, deliver his message, and leave on a different path that he had taken when he came in. And now this, the prophet left, caused quite a stir, and on his way out, we read the story that we're about to read of another prophet, and most of the commentaries understand this other prophet that we're about to read about to be a false prophet, to be someone who was maybe one of the prophets of Jereboam, someone who was involved in this conspiracy, or this rebellion really against God with Jereboam's new temple, that this was a false prophet. However, the Abarbanel is one of the commentaries who understand this prophet to actually have been a real prophet of God. And I'm going to take that approach, and some of what I am going to use to explain what we're about to read today comes from the book that I've quoted before in this podcast by Rabbi Alex Israel, part of the Koren Maggid Studies in Tanakh series. I recommend that you read the book. It's really good. That entire series is really good. But some of the ideas come from him, so I have to give credit where credit is due, with some tweaks and modifications of my own. As we read through the text, we'll be able to understand this motivation of this prophet, what he's doing and why, by understanding him as having been a real prophet of God, as having been someone who was true, was real. And this Navi Echad Zakein, there was an elderly Navi, an elderly prophet, Yoshev Beit El, that lived in Beit El. Now, the first question is, why would a real prophet be living in Beit El? Now, why would he be staying in this place, which Jereboam has now converted into a city, a capital of idol worship? And if one really thinks about it, it really starts to make sense. Remember how Jereboam started in his career, right? He started in his career as a true champion of the common folk, right? He represented the people. He spoke truth to power. He represented the people. He asked the King Rehoboam to lessen the burden on the people. You know, he was truly, and he rebelled against Shlomo, against Solomon, in a time when Solomon was in decline as well. And Jereboam was also promised by God that he was going to be a successful king. So he had all the marks of a leader who had the future behind him, who had God behind him. When he built this new temple, one can imagine that a person, even a prophet, can be confused. Who's the real one here? Who should I be following? Should I be following Rehoboam in Jerusalem, or should I be following Jereboam here in Beit El? Jereboam was still speaking the language of, this is God we're worshiping. So, you know, this Navi is kind of sitting and watching, and his ambivalence here was, we'll see evident in this verse, which explains something which is harder to understand if you think of him as a false prophet. And Vayavo beno, his son came, Vayesaper lo es kol hamasa asher asa ish Elohim hayom b'Beit El. His son came back from this big celebration and told him everything that happened, everything that this prophet, this young prophet, had done that day in Beit El. He told him that which he told the king, how he spoke to the king, the predictions he made to the king. And they told it to their father. So apparently he wasn't there. If he was a false prophet, if he was one of Yeravam's people, why wasn't he there? Well, clearly he wasn't there because he was not sure. He was not sure. Is this real? He was a real prophet, and he wasn't sure which way to go. And one could imagine that with this split of the people, at a time when Yeravam started out his career as a righteous person being supported by God, right, that he would be confused. So if we understand that, then we can understand the motivation of this prophet throughout all of the events we're going to read. Everything really boils down to his confusion, right? His trying to figure out which way should I go. So Vayedaber alehem avihim, the father said to him, Eiza haderech halach, which path did he take to leave the city? Vayeru banav es haderech asher halach isha Elohim asher ba miYehuda. And his sons showed him the path, the road that he took out of Beit El, that the prophet who had come from Judah. Vayomer al banav, he said to his sons, Chivshu li hachamar, saddle up the donkey for me. Vayichbeshu lo hachamar vayikav alav, and they saddled up the donkey, and he rode on the donkey to catch up with the prophet on his way out of Beit El. Vayelach acharei ish Elohim, and he followed after that man of God. Vayimtzoehu yoshev tachas ha'ela, and they found him sitting underneath an ela tree, a kind of tree. Vayomer elav, and he said to him, Ha'ata ish Elohim asher bas miYehuda, are you the one? Presumably he was resting under the tree, he was walking, he was tired, he sat down, and this is where he caught up to him. And he said, are you the one that came from Judah, the prophet? Vayomer ani, and he said, yes, I am. Vayomer elav, and he said, Lechiti habaysa ve'echolachim, come with me home, and let's eat. Now, if he had been told the whole story, then he had probably also been told, right? They said before that they told him all of the things that happened, the conversation between him and the prophet and the king. And then he would have known that this prophet was told not to stay and eat in Beit Lechem. So clearly he's already trying to test him. He wants to see. Now, what kind of test is he doing? If he's a real man of God, then he won't come and eat, right? So if he's a real man of God, and so if he truly doesn't come to eat, then that would be an indication that what he said was a true prophecy, and then this Navi should actually follow God in Jerusalem and not follow Jeroboam's idols here in Beit El. So at first the Navi, the younger Navi, Vayomer, he says, Lo uchalo shavitach v'lo v'itach v'lo echol lechem v'lo eshteh et chamayim b'makom hahu. I cannot go and return with you to your house. I cannot eat or drink with you in this place. Ki davar elai bedvar Adonai, because God told me in my prophecy, he said, Lo tochal lechem v'lo tishteh shamayim. Don't stay and eat bread. Don't drink. Don't do anything. Lo tashuv l'leches b'derech asher alachta ba. Don't even return to come back on the same path. You have to lead through a different path, and don't stop for nothing. Vayomer lo. So he said to him, a further test. Let me see if I can really get him to come with me. He still wasn't sure. Maybe he's just saying that because he announced it in public and everyone knows. So he says, Gamani navi kamocha. I am also a prophet just like you. Umalach diber elai b'dvar Adonai leimar. And a malach, a messenger of God, spoke to me in God's name and said, Heshiveu itcha el beisecha. Bring him back to you, to your house, so you can sit down and have some bread and drink some water. So here he's testing him even further, and the verse says, Kicheshlo, he was lying to him. So in other words, the verse wants us to know that this wasn't a real prophecy. This makes a lot of sense if we understand that this Navi is a real prophet. If a real prophet is saying that God spoke to me, but the verse wants you to make sure you know, okay, he's a prophet, but he lied to him here. And why would he lie? Again, he's trying to test him out. He really wants to know what's the truth. Is this for real or not? Now, Vayoshav ito, it doesn't record what his answer, but it records what he did. He returned to his house, and he ate bread and he drank water now. So now this Navi is convinced, right? If our understanding of the story is correct, so now this Navi is saying, this guy is a fraud, and if he's a fraud, then Yeravam may be right. Maybe this temple in Beitel is where I'm supposed to be and I'm supposed to support. Vayihem yoshvim al hashulchan. They were sitting on the table. And here God spoke to the prophet, the older prophet, the one who had brought the younger prophet into his house. So here we have him receiving an actual prophecy, another proof that the Abarbanel uses to demonstrate that he was a true prophet. And God called out, the word of God came to the Navi, and then after the word of God came to the Navi, he went and called to the man of God, Jereboam Yehuda that had come from Judah, saying as follows, Ko amar Adonai, so says God, Ya'an ki marisa pi Adonai, because you have rebelled against God. V'lo shamarta es hamitzvah asher tzivcha Adonai Elohecha, you didn't keep the commandment that God has commanded you. V'tosha v'tocha lechem v'teshmayim, and you went and you ate bread and drank water, b'makom asher diber alecha, in that very place where it was told to you, al tocha lechem, do not eat bread, tishmayim, do not drink water, lo tavo nivlatcha el kever avosecha. The punishment will be that you will not even be buried in your family's grave, which would seem to indicate that his death is imminent. Now, at this point, the elder prophet now has received his answer from God, right? That yes, the prophecy was real, right? Because God verified that I told you not to eat here, which is part of the original prophecy. So the prophecy about the destruction of Beitel that the prophet made was real, but this prophet had fumbled and made a mistake and didn't listen to God in the end. Now, it shouldn't surprise you, this isn't the first time in the Torah that a prophet who God talks to makes a big mistake and turns away. I mean, we just had God speaking to Shlomo Solomon, and we had recorded at the end of his life big mistakes that he made. We have the prophet David, who also recorded incidents of David speaking to God, right? And then David's mistakes. We see that, every prophet, even Moshe, even Moses in the Torah was recorded having made a mistake. The fact that he made this mistake is not an indicator that he's a false prophet, but it's an indicator that he fell into a trap, and he's going to suffer for it, unfortunately. And so now bottom line also is that this elder prophet now has learned the clear message of with whom lies the truth, that Yeravam, who was also a prophet, who also heard a prophecy from God, who was to be appointed as a successful leader, had made a huge mistake when he broke away from the temple in Jerusalem and built an alternate temple, which is, even though he pretended it might be a temple for God, eventually it became a terrible stumbling block, and it led to idol worship, outright idol worship in the northern tribes. So vatocha lechem v'teish mayim. I'm sorry, I skipped back. So it was after he ate the bread and after he drank, he saddled up his donkey, right? For the Navi, for the prophet that he had brought back. In other words, the elder prophet saddled up a donkey for the younger prophet. And he went on the road. And on the road he was caught by a lion. And the lion killed him. And his nivlaso, his corpse, was lying on the road. And the donkey, as donkeys often do, they stood next to their owner. And the lion just sat there next to the corpse. The lion didn't eat the person. And there were people passing by. And they saw a corpse on the road. And they saw this lion, this unusual sight where this lion is lying next to the corpse, not eating it. And so this caused them to tell the story. The story spread fast. The fact that a lion killed a person was, unfortunately, then in those days when lions were frequent in the land of Israel, was probably not, it's something they would tell, but it's not such unusual news that it should pass through the city quickly. But the fact that the lion was just sitting there, that's a very unusual sight, that the lion makes a kill and doesn't eat it. So they told this over in the city where where the elder Navi, the elder prophet, was sitting. So the elder Navi, the one who had taken the younger Navi back from the road, he heard this news. Vayomer Ish Elohim, and he said, "Now I know for sure that this man is an Ish Elohim, because all of the prophecies that 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 were said to him and about him have come true. Asher Moroes Pi Adonai, because now I know that that which he did, he was rebelling against God, which also verifies further the original prophecy that he said, Vayetneo Adonai la'aryeh, and God gave him over to a lion, Vayishbereu, Vayimiseo, and the lion killed him and tore him apart. Vayishbereu means he broke him, presumably meaning broke his neck, the way a lion usually kills. Kidvar Adonai Asher Dibralo, in the same as God had told him he would do if he were to violate God's command. And he says to his sons as follows: saddle up the donkey, and he saddled up the donkey. Now, knowing that this man wasn't a fraud, he was a true prophet of God, he's a special man, we should honor him. So they went. They found his corpse thrown on the road. And the donkey and the lion were sitting there next to this nevela, next to this corpse. The aryeh, the lion, did not destroy the nevela, the corpse. It didn't eat it, I'm sorry. And he had not broken or killed the donkey, and which is an extremely unusual sight. One wonders what the symbolism of this unusual miracle is. Like, obviously it's unusual, and obviously the point is to show that this was an event ordained by God as opposed to just an ordinary accident. However, I wonder if one might be able to say that this was a symbol trying to show the Navi something, that there's a split, right, between the Aryeh, which often represents the tribe of Judah, and the people of the north, the people of the northern tribes that split away, and this symbolism here is that the lion is not meant to take over and kill, is not meant to fight and kill with the northern tribes. The tribes are not there. When God made Jereboam, when God told Jereboam he's going to be a king and start his own kingdom, he meant, and we mentioned this in earlier podcasts, that what God wanted was there to be two political entities, but they should be united in their religious worship. They should be united in Jerusalem in their religious worship. Jereboam was separating the two. The fact that the lion was lying with its natural enemy without killing it, in this case lying together with the chamor, the donkey, which so could symbolize the northern tribes in this image here, is trying to show that they don't need to be enemies that kill each other. They can just be separate. And this could be just an idea of mine reading through these words of what the symbolism of this is. It's more than just a miracle, which would be important enough, but there's a symbol here. There's a meaning here. And that this elder prophet should see what he sees and learn something from it. Then what did the Navi do, knowing that he was an Ish Elokim, that he was an honorable person, he was a prophet that had been killed? He took the man of God's corpse, and he placed it on the donkey, and he brought it back to his town, to say, to eulogize him and to bury him. And he placed the corpse in his own spot. He was an elder man. He had already reserved a spot for himself, and he placed it there. There's a symbolism in that too. Why would this old elder prophet place the younger prophet in his own grave? Because to some degree, and to a large degree, he felt responsible. I mean, he invited him. He lied to him. He caused that prophet should sin. So when somebody, causes someone else to sin, the person that causes him is to a large degree responsible. It's as if he did it himself. By putting him in his own grave, he's demonstrating that idea of Vayispedu alav, and he eulogized him and said, Hoi achi, woe is to my brother. So here he's calling him his brother. They both made a huge mistake. Vayihi acharei kavro oso, and it happened after he buried him, Vayomer al banav lemar, and he sold his children. B'mosi, when I die, ukvartem osi bakever asher ishalim kavarbo, burying me in that same grave. Eitzel atzmosav, right next to his bones. Hanichos atzmosai, that's where my bones should lay. Ki hayo yiyeh hadavar asher kara b'dvar Adonai, because I know that which he predicted in the name of God is going to happen. Ala mizbeach asher beVeitel, to the altar in Beitel. And on all of the altars that have now been erected throughout Samaria, throughout the region of the 10 tribes, all of these bamot will eventually be smashed and broken because Jereboam has now led the people towards idol worship. And so the Navi Hazaken, the elder prophet, got the message. After this thing had occurred, this event occurred that we just read about, Lo shav Jereboam midarko hara'ah, Jereboam never returned from his evil path. He didn't get the message, despite now 2 prophets. And remember, I'm going with the fact that with the idea that the Navi Zaken is a good prophet, is a real prophet, right? So who also made a mistake in tricking the younger one, but like I said, that's something that happens. But Jereboam did not return from his evil path. He never got the message, despite all of these signs that have come his way, that he should. Vayashav, and he went back. Vayas miktosam kohanei vamos, and he just pretended to be a populist, and he took from the nation. He said, you guys, you can be priests to these new bamot. Hachafetz yimalei es yado. Whoever wants to, right, can go ahead and anoint himself vayi kohanei bamot and be a kohen and be a priest. So here Jereboam is being a populist, saying everyone, not only those descendants of Aaron like they have in Jerusalem, but whoever wants can be a kohen. Vayhi badavar hazel chatat Beit Jereboam, and this fact that he didn't return from his evil ways, and he led the people astray from God, and he led them in a way acting like a righteous person, acting like a person that was sticking up for the little guy. But this became a sin in the house and the family of Jereboam, of Yerovam, ulahakchid ulahashmid me'al pnei adama, which eventually led to the complete and utter destruction and annihilation of the family of Yerovam from the face of the earth. This concludes chapter 13. Thank you so much for studying chapter 13 together with me. Looking forward to studying chapter 14, the rest of this book of Kings together. Have a wonderful day.